Um, so what other, if at the district level, what else should you be looking at? So this, some of this sort of these insights came out of work with Syracuse and other districts. It's really important to look at expulsions, arrests, referrals to law enforcement, because if those are going up while your suspension rates are going down, it doesn't really suggest that you've made a lot of progress. In fact, there are concerns that you'll be creating unsafe environments if you just tell teachers they can't suspend kids. Well, you know, that's really, no one's really arguing that that's a solution. No one's saying chaos is acceptable. Safety is really not on the table. There should be no trade-offs with safety. So we really want to find interventions that work, and the research suggests that, in fact, they do help improve the sense of safety and reduce serious offenses by addressing behavior in ways that's more constructive and less punitive. Throughout the state of California, where there's been a dramatic reduction in suspension rates for defiance and disruption, there was also similar reduction in suspensions for the most serious offenses. So another thing, we talked about counts of suspensions per 100, but looking at the type of offense is really important to that analysis, and also to really put clear data on the question of whether safety is being traded, whether there has been a trade-off. So some folks may get pushback when you start to do these interventions, but if you look at the data by type of offense, you can say, no, in fact, suspensions for offenses of every type have gone down. Or if they're not, that's important information. Maybe the kind of intervention you're invested in is not really being successful if folks don't feel safer. Looking at school-level data, and I'd also look at, internally at least, looking at teacher-level data. We've heard, at least anecdotally, that in some schools and districts, it's a very small percentage of the teachers that are responsible for a very large percentage of the suspensions. And now I have to say, I taught for 10 years. I was that guy. I was that teacher who was sending kids to the principal's office right and left, but I got support and training. I had a very wise principal, and she said, Dan, you have a classroom management problem, and because I really was dedicated to teaching, I didn't take it defensively. I got trained, and I reflected on my practice. There are a lot of things in the training that helped me right away. The next slide here is from Syracuse, and we're looking now at, and this sort of goes to the importance of really breaking down the data, not just by race, but race with disabilities. And in Syracuse, we see that this is, again, now we're not counting unduplicated, but we're counting suspensions. You can see across the different racial groups that students, for each racial group, the students with disabilities were suspended at much higher rates. So this really suggests that the kinds of supports and services that are providing around behavior for kids with disabilities may be lacking and have to be strengthened. Remember, this is data from 2012-13, and there's been a tremendous decrease in suspensions, although I haven't seen the final data set, but we'll hear about that with the next presenter. So the progress has been made, but part of progress, you can't know if what you're doing is working or not if you don't really take a close look and disaggregate your data in ways that really reveal some of the most profound disparities. And you can see here, similar to like Texas, there are 100, these are suspensions though, 104.9 suspensions for every 100 black students with disabilities. Why I discuss why look at the type of offense. It strengthens the argument when you are doing things right that there are alternative responses and that suspensions are ways to reduce the use that don't mean, that kids are doing more violent or dangerous things. Let's see. It's also what we tend to see is in this next slide is that it really is the most minor and subjective offense categories that we see the largest disparities. Again, these are counts of suspensions, and this is, again, data from Syracuse that's somewhat out of date. But we see for the minor offenses, there was a gap of 27 suspensions per 100 between the white students and the black students. And for the most serious ones involving guns, drugs, violence with injury, first of all, they were very low relative to the other offenses, and the racial gap was much, much smaller. And here is when we looked at Syracuse and we added disabilities. So the gap got even larger. Among the kids with disabilities, the racial gap was 36 suspensions per 100 in the minor offense category, and about 2 suspensions per 100 in the most serious category. Other thing to look at in Massachusetts has just has this report on days of lost instruction that just went online, and you can look at it disaggregated by race. But in Syracuse, we looked at this, and this really drives home the academic link. You know, kids who are being suspended are losing really important days of instruction. Another study on chronic absenteeism showed that students who had lost 3 days, were absent 3 days before taking the National Assessment of Education Progress in Reading at the 4th grade level, lost a full grade level after controlling for all these other factors. So losing instructional time is really detrimental, and especially if they're for minor offenses for which other interventions that don't remove kids from school could be used, then we could expect some academic benefits from reducing suspensions. So there was a slight decline in Syracuse, but it's really important to look at this data, and this is kind of information you can look at the building level.